Welcome. Thanks for joining us. This is the PBC Morning Dawn Study Group at Padmasambhava, the Venerable Khenpo Rinpoche's Monastery and Retreat Center in New York. This is the 17th time we've done this discussion group on the Khenpo Rinpoche's book, The Buddhist Path. This is chapter 17. It's entitled The Tantric Tradition and Terma, beginning on page 83 of that same book. So we'll begin with opening prayers like usual, and then we'll have the discussion. So thanks so much. Guru Padmasambhava, Samanta Vajra, Vajra Pramada Vajra, Sri Singha, Dhammakara, the 25 king and subjects, So Zur, Nut, Nyak, the 100 tertons and others, the lamas of the Kama and Terma lineages, to you I pray. The supreme tradition of the glorious Buddha Padmasambhava, which is the essential, extraordinary view and doctrine of the early translation school, you keep alive and spread by the light of wisdom. Lord of Dharma, great Khenpo, I pray at your lotus feet. In the palace of the Yogmen Dharmadhatu, the essence of all the Buddhas of the three times, the one who shows clearly the Dharmakaya of my own mind, we pray to the Honorable Root Guru, glorious Root Teacher, precious one, dwelling on the lotus seat on the crown of my head. Hold me with your great kindness, and bestow the accomplishments of body, speech, and mind. Om Marapasanadi, Om Marapasanadi, Om Marapasanadi, Om Marapasanadi, Om Marapasanadi, So this is chapter 17 in the Buddhist Path, Tantric Tradition and Terma, page 83. We'll do a quick summary of the first half of the chapter and then go into the discussion. So the Venerable Khenpo Rinpoches begin by defining the term Tantra. Tantra means continuity and refers to the unchanging nature of the mind. The scriptures that teach about this unchanging vajra nature are called the tantras, and the techniques used to directly reveal the mind's nature are known as Tantrayana or Vajrayana. They then go on to say that sometimes people ask as if there is a difference in the role of women and men in the Vajrayana Buddhism. And Rinpoche say that all people have the same authority to become teachers and the same opportunity for realization. In the inner tantras, the 14th root Samaya seems to honor and appreciate women even more than men. They continue by saying Buddhism first spread from Tibet, from India in the 5th century and continued in the 8th century during the time of Guru Padmasambhava. This first wave of Buddhism into Tibet is known as Nyingma, or the Ancient Ones. In the 11th century, a second wave of Buddhism came to Tibet from India, which is collectively known as Sarma, or the New Schools, comprised of the Kadam Gelug, Kagyu, and Sakya traditions. All of these schools came from the Buddha, teach Vajrayana Buddhism, and are complete paths to enlightenment, each with their own lineages of masters and scholars. And the Nyingma school in particular is made up of the long oral lineage of Kama and the close, revealed treasure lineage of Terma. Termas are teachings and objects hidden by Guru Rinpoche and Yeshe Tsogyal in Tibet in the 8th century to benefit beings in the future. The wisdom Dakini Yeshe Tsogyal was one of Guru Rinpoche's 9 heart disciples who achieved enlightenment in a single lifetime. Terma teachings were mainly written down by Yeshe Tsogyal as instructed by Guru Rinpoche, and were hidden throughout Tibet and other countries through meditation power, oftentimes without leaving the meditation cushion at all. They were hidden in various places, like inside rock mountains, underwater in lakes and rivers, within glaciers and buildings, and they were left as ritual objects as well as actual Dharma teachings. And sometimes these terma were even hidden and revealed within the mind streams of one of the 25 disciples of Guru Rinpoche. So that's a summary of the first half. Then,
and so the first section to discuss is from page 83, the first paragraph, and then page 85, first full paragraph. Tantra is a Sanskrit word that means continuity. Tantra refers primarily to the unchanging nature of the mind, which continues without interruption from beginningless time until final enlightenment. The scriptures that teach the unchanging, vajra nature of the mind are called the tantras, and the means to directly reveal the mind's nature are known as the Tantrayana or the Vajrayana. Buddha Shakyamuni revealed many different types and levels of teachings to suit the various capacities of students. The highest section of his teaching is the Vajrayana, which encompasses many practices, such as the preliminary practices, the creation stage and completion stage practices, Mahamudra and Dzogchen. Many of the Vajrayana teachings of Guru Padmasambhava were hidden in various parts of Tibet for the sake of future generations. These hidden treasures are called Terma in Tibetan, and the people who reveal them are called tertons. The Terma treasures include texts and ritual objects that were hidden by Guru Padmasambhava and Lady Yeshe Tsogyal in Tibet in the 8th century. Yeshe Tsogyal, one of Padmasambhava's 9 heart students, attained enlightenment in one lifetime. Yeshe Tsogyal left signs of her accomplishment, such as writing verses in solid rock with her finger. I was thinking one thing that might be good to just kind of review a little bit is Rinpoche's here talking about the Tantrayana in relation to Buddhism, and Tantrayana, Vajrayana, and then kind of specifically go right to the Terma tradition, but maybe just also give, if we just kind of review and remember just basically kind of what are the other traditions that are part of, you know, the Vajrayana. Terma is one, but I thought maybe that would be a nice place to start, just, you know, if we just kind of collectively kind of just remember a little bit more about the other elements that make up the practice.
You speaking of like the Karma lineage?
That's one.
Because I remember reading somewhere where it was apparently the Karma lineage was really popular until the Terma lineage showed up. Was it because the Karma was like the spoken word from teacher to student? Am I remembering that one correctly?
That's it.
No, was that like that unbroken lineage? Of course,
There's
still.
there's 2 lineages, in that sense.
And then it was like the Terma lineage was showing up, what was it, like 200 years later? Or, I mean, 200 years after Padmasambhava? Or?
yeah, the Terma lineage began, of course, with Guru Rinpoche, but the first Terma was revealed by Sanjay Lingpa. Sanjay Lama, sorry, my bad. Sanjay Lama, I think he was born in 1000. So, yeah, that's when the Terma lineage arose. And it's not, I think at that point, Rinpoche say for about 300 years, till about the 14th century, Terma became very popular. And then its popularity kind of eclipsed the Kama, meaning it began to get more emphasis by people revealing Terma and then groups of students under those tertons, like practicing those specific teachings and not practicing certain other Kama teachings. But the Kama teachings themselves went back to Buddha Shakyamuni, and then were passed all the way, as Buddhism came into Tibet from Guru Rinpoche, then they were passed from, like you said, teacher to disciple, and then that disciple would apply the instruction, become fully realized in that practice, and they'd become a holder of that lineage, and they'd pass that orally on to their students as well. So all the students of Guru Rinpoche, during even this whole Nyingma, like the official dates of the Nyingma school from like 8th century into about the late 10th century or 11th century, was all actually simply Kama. So all the early masters in those 300 years or so were Kama lineage holders, and then the Terma started to be revealed. But Rinpoche say very clearly that Kama is always the foundation of Terma. Terma is like an ornament of Kama, and they always go hand in hand, really. And I mean, it all goes back to Buddha and then Guru Rinpoche.
Particularly between the lineages, is there a distinction? Like, is there creation stage and completion stage in Kama, or do you only find that in Terma, or?
Both. It's in both, for sure, definitely.
Okay.
Kama is like the lifeblood of the teachings, because that's the spoken word of the teacher from the mouth of the teacher to the ear of the student. They say a long lineage of Kama and a short or close lineage of Terma, and they're all in those two. But the long lineage of Kama is like mainly what's been upheld by like those 6 principal big Nyingma monasteries. That's what the instructions that are passed down orally from the teacher to the student in practice. So Dujam Rinpoche, he says, if you read, I wish I had a quote here. And this, like Khenpo Rinpoche quotes in Light of Fearless Indestructible Wisdom. He said, if you read the lineage history, then you'll find out just how important and beautiful the Kama tradition is.
So I guess the other question that I have is, besides how it's transmitted, is there a distinguishing feature between the Kama and Terma lineages, or is it just 2 versions of transmission?
You mean in terms of like the practices that are done?
Or the practices, or is it more based on like meditation instruction? Is there, I mean, or is it really just they both emphasize the same type of practices? It's just that one was transmitted, in the way that Terma is transmitted, and one was passed down from teacher to student.
Yeah, the only experience I have with Kama is one time I got very interested in the text chanting the names of Manjushri, Manjushri Nam Samgiti, and that's the first text in the Tantras, in the collection of the Kanjra. That's the first text in the Tantras. And in the Nyingma Kama, that has 46 volumes, and I went looking for things on there, and there's a long commentary on chanting the names of Manjushri by Padmasambhava. I found a short one by Garab Dorje, and a short one by Vimala Mitra. And so those are all Nyingma. And I think maybe this characterization of Kama and Nyingma, Kama and Terma is just within Nyingma, because there's also many commentaries on chanting the names of Manjushri in the new schools, too, in terms of, I think, Naropa wrote one, and I can't remember right now, but Alex Wayman has translated a text, a version of chanting the names of Manjushri, which is based on seeing that text as a description of the mandala of Manjushri, of all the deities who are in the mandala, but then the ones that I was found in the Nyingma Kama were all Dzogchen commentaries. So it's like, I think maybe Kama is a little bit more commentaries, that it's more like teachings, but I don't know for if there's commentaries in Terma as well, or if Terma is more like practices.
Well, I was just going to say that's something, similar, just like you were saying, that long lineage of Kama and the close lineage of Terma, what the specialness of that is so wonderful, like with the Terma being the close lineage, because it's directly from Guru Rinpoche and Yeshe Tsogyal. Whether it's the mind Terma or the scripts or these objects that are found, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit later in the chapter, but just that's why it's close, is because it's exactly from them. There's no gap in terms of time, whereas with that long lineage, meaning that it's, like you were saying, from mouth to ear, from teacher to student. So again, it's unbroken, and both are unbroken, but there's like this, in terms of time, there's this kind of option or availability for commentaries to come through in the Kama, whereas, and there are in the Terma too, I'm sure, but, not as many.
Still warm with the Dakini's breath. It's still like hot off the press. Right?
Yeah.
So fresh, and I think that was part of, why Padmasambhava gave those teachings, what Kenshin Palden Sherab Rinpoche said, and Khenpo Sevonton Rinpoche, I'm sure so many others too. Like that aspect of the skillful means of Padmasambhava in Yeshe Tsogyal, just in that, I mean, incredible seeing their wisdom mind so vast, really keeping these teachings going in their current time to students, which were transmitted, but then all these treasures that were like, you know, these vast teachings given to like those assembled at that time, and then, you know, knowing exactly the conditions and which one of those students, you know, are connected and are going to be revealing the teachings in the future. I mean, it's so, and then when they are revealed in the future to that terton who, you know, reveals them, like Amanda was saying, just that it's so fresh and it awakens all of those teachings in their own mind and heart, and then they put them into practice, and then it's like really fresh and undiluted, and not that the other ones, not that the Kama lineage is like diluted or anything, but it just
still
really
unbroken,
very fresh and like
And appropriate for the time.
appropriate for the time.
Yeah.
And the people, the minds of the people. I mean, we're all human beings, more or less the same throughout the ages, but, you know, kind of particular to the different times.
Yes, that's one of the things that did seem interesting, particularly, you know, at first doing the practices, it's more interested in, oh, what's the text actually saying? And sometimes it's really fascinating when you start looking into like the descriptions that are also left in there. You really see how, you know, this was tailored to this situation in this time, you know, kind of thing. It makes it very beautiful. Well, I guess that's not the part that it's another beautiful aspect. Maybe that's another way of saying it. It's another beautiful aspect.
I don't know if you guys would, I did find when His Holiness Dudjom Rinpoche described the Kama and Terma really condensed. You want to hear that? Just
Yeah, that's great.
Sure.
He says, the teachings, this is regarding the Kama, from light of fearless indestructible wisdom. The teachings that were passed on from mouth to ear in unbroken succession from Buddha Shakyamuni or from Buddha Samantabhadra up to your own root Lama are known as the long lineage of Kama. The Kama teaching is vast and profound, containing pith instructions for both Sutra and Tantra, but primarily for the three divisions in the Nyingma inner Tantras, Do, Ju, and Sem. The Sutra which gathers all the intentions of Ana Yoga, the secret essence Tantra, the net of magical illusions, which is the Guru Garbha of Maha Yoga, and the Semde, Longde, and Mingakde, or the vast expanse, mind, and pith instructions class of Dzogchen, or Ati Yoga. So the three inner Tantras, they're seminal works. In woodblock form alone, the number of Tantras in the Kama teaching is over 440 volumes. And that number is far exceeded by the Kama teachings recorded in handwritten form. From the Sutra point of view, they contain Vinaya and Bodhisattva teachings. From the Tantra point of view, they contain Kriya, Upa, and Yoga teachings. And from the extraordinary Nyingma point of view, they contain the three inner Tantra teachings, Maha Yoga, Ana Yoga, and Ati Yoga. Then he goes on here, the secret class, therefore, this Kama teaching is the foundation and heart of the Nyingma school, and from ancient times it spread beautifully in Tibet. Study the religious history of the Nyingma school and the biography of its masters, and you will see why the Nyingma Kama is so important. The Nyingma teachings were preserved and spread through group practice retreat, mandalas, sadhanas, pith instruction, and oral explanation of the Guru Garbha, etc. In brief, the activities of study and practice continued without decrease in central Tibet at these 6 monasteries, 6 principal monasteries. So, and then there's just a short excerpt on the Terma lineage. He says, foreseeing the degeneration of the teachings and beings in times to come, Guru Rinpoche kindly hid an inconceivable number of treasure troves containing the Dharma, wealth, blessings, substance, and so forth, in glaciers, rocky mountains, lakes, and many other places. When the time was right, tertons emanated, opened the treasure doors, and spread the teachings they contained. These teachings then are known as the close lineage of the Termas. This lineage comprises inconceivable pith instructions, yogic activities, and ritual practices of the creation and completion stages, connected primarily with Ka, Gong, Per, Sum. From early on and up to the present, more than 100 major and over 1,000 lesser tertons have appeared. And that 3 is the Kajie, the 8 Haruka teachings, the first one, and the Lama Gongdu, or teachings on the Guru, and then the Purba is like Vajra. Those are some of the principal Terma classes.
page is that from, just out of curiosity?
185 of the Ceaseless Echoes in the glossary.
Okay.
But I thought to mention too that the Terma is not a new precedent that just started up in the 9th century. Like the Prajnaparamita teachings and Nagarjuna, those are described as Terma. The 5 treatises of Maitreya, you know, which were given to a Sangha, those are regarded as Terma. So, and some people regard the whole Buddhist teaching, which was concealed, as Terma too. Ratnalingpa said that. It's Terma because it's concealed, it's a Terma because it's hidden, it's a Terma. And that's the meaning of the teaching, is like the Buddhist teaching can also be categorized according to that. So anyway, just
the Buddha nature.
Yeah, or that the teaching, Ratnalingpa says, it's a treasure because it's concealed, it's a treasure because it is hidden, it's a treasure because it is inexhaustible, it is a treasure because it fulfills needs and wishes.
Wonderful. Could you just read that one part again in the Terma about where it was saying what those, it mentioned like 3 things that are in there, one of them was rituals, because just in terms of that question about whether there's actually commentary in Terma, it doesn't sound like from what he said, at least in terms of Nyingma Terma, that it's actually commentaries.
As far as the comma,
No, it was in the middle of the Terma paragraph.
Inconceivable pith instructions, yogic activities, and ritual practices of the creation and completion.
Yeah. So I guess if you include all those earlier ones, those are definitely commentaries, like Maitreya's texts are commentaries.
Yeah,
Or
like the
Buddhist texts.
exposition, like that ongoing exposition of the fundamental sutras and tantras, that's the Kama lineage, all the way up to the present day. So.
But the pith instructions are there.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway.
Should we? So that gives a little perspective.
Yeah, so, just because we're asking, and it's Dujam Rinpoche. He's a great terton, you know. So.
Oh, if I could say one thing about the commentaries, I heard, isn't the Longchen Nyingtig a commentary Terma on all the Duma Nyingtig and the Khandro Nyingtig?
I think that's Longchenpa's text, that, what is it, the Nyingtik Yapshi, that's the 2 of those, that in terms of the name Longchen, being in Longchen Nyingtik. But I did just recently read that the Longchen Nyingtik was revealed by Jigme Lingpa in the 18th century, but that it has some text of Jigme Lingpa's own writings in it as well. That it's not just the things that came to him from Longchenpa, but it has some of his own writings. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in. So, but what you're thinking of, and we were talking about Longchenpa having written commentaries on the Khandro.
Khandro, the Bhima, yeah.
Those 2. So that was part of his greatness, is bringing together those texts. Yeah.
Should we go to the second point?
Yeah, I'll just do the summary quick and then we'll do that. So, halfway through the chapter, the Rinpoches continue saying that Terma can only be revealed through the meditative power of tertons. There are 108 great tertons and 1,000 lesser tertons, all of whom are reincarnated masters of the 25 disciples of Guru Rinpoche. They are extraordinary awakened beings who receive teachings and blessings directly from Guru Rinpoche. They have incredible powers due to revealing their inner wisdom. Tertons are able to find the terma and reveal them without much difficulty. For example, after they've made the indicated preparations, the terton arrives to the terma spot, and sometimes a rock will suddenly open by itself, and then the terton will remove a container holding the terma. In addition to Dharma texts, terma can be ritual objects like vajras, bells, purbas, statues, and blessed clothing. All of these items are used to establish a fresh, living connection to Guru Padmasambhava, the Buddha, and one's innermost nature of mind. The terma texts are very unusual and awe-inspiring. Sometimes they are small yellow scrolls that cannot burn or be easily damaged. The teachings are written in symbolic Dakini script, which are not Tibetan language. Tertons can look at a few of these letters of Dakini script and through their inner wisdom reveal even volumes of teachings from them exactly, word for word, as Guru Rinpoche originally concealed them. There are many terma in Tibet, and they are very special, They even give protection from harm to those who wear them. Even in present day, termas continue to be revealed and practiced.
Okay, so the second point for discussion comes from that last paragraph on page 86. The terma texts are very unusual. They are small pieces of yellow paper rolled into tight scrolls. If you put these rolls of paper into a fire, they will not burn. These teachings are written in a special language called the symbolic language of the dakinis. These scrolls have just a few small signs, which are not Tibetan letters, but when the tertons look at the letters, they can transcribe long books from them. There are many of these hidden treasures in Tibet, and they are considered very special objects. Even in present-day Tibet, great tertons continue to reveal the terma treasures.
Well, I read in a book, I think, Vajra Essence, and it's about the Dujum Tersar, the part that's, I think, more on shamatha type teachings. It was in the introduction, I think, it said that it said Dujum Lingpa, the terton of Dujum Terma, said he downloaded the terma from the Dharmakaya. So I wondered how that could be explained or how that fits into this description of terms.
That process of how the terton discovers the object and then from the writing gets the whole text.
Yeah, or it sounded a little bit different to download something from the Dharmakaya or to get it.
Loose translation.
I think that was the editor's commentary. I don't think they necessarily had that word download. But it's something we can relate to in our own vernacular and our own experience.
Yeah. That choice of word. You mean,
That choice of words.
For
Of download.
I think it relates, on the study guide, if you look on the back, there's the term and lineage terms, and it just lists, in the chapter 2 they talk about this, but just those 3 types of terma, the earth or land terma, the mind terma, and the pure vision terma. So I think in that case, the downloading from the Dharmakaya, maybe he was meaning the mind terma, really, that's my guess.
Does anyone know if that terma is my terma?
I think it's a mind terma. Yeah. I think so.
That would fit.
Because I don't know if this is getting off course, but I think it's like he went to Pure Land and received the teachings there, I think. So, but I really had rusty memory of.
Maybe it'd be good to elaborate on the difference between mind terma and pure vision terma, then, because I remember hearing about mind terma before, but I'm not sure I'm really used to hearing it referred to as pure vision terma.
I feel as though, I seem to remember having read that that's more when, there's a vision of a deity that really comes and speaks the teaching directly. That's what I've read.
And that's the pure vision one?
That's the pure vision.
Okay.
And then the mind terma is just really more like that Dharmakaya, really that the teaching just comes.
Just arises.
Yeah.
The cause and condition comes at the right moment, and then the teaching, or recollected, is sometimes people say another version, where the terton remembers their past life, and the teaching comes that way. It's so beautiful how it's such an unbroken transmission, like you were saying, Maya. From Samatha Vajra, who emanated as also Buddhist Shakyamuni, on the Nirmanakaya level, and then Guru Padmasambhava was a reincarnation of Buddhist Shakyamuni, and then his direct disciples reincarnated as tertons. And those tertons, and he specifically entrusted specific teachings for specific moments of time to be revealed by those exact practitioners when entrusted to the dakinis and the guardians. And then when they're reborn in a different incarnation, that time comes about. Like one example is Yeshe Tsogyal, I think. And he received a term of prophecy. Maybe you guys remember that better than I, but he said, oh, there'll be, there could be fires in Lhasa, You should specifically reveal this terma at a specific time. That's what this protector told Yeshe Tsogyal, and he didn't really pay much attention. He didn't really do that. And then there was fires in Lhasa, and there was damage. Later it said, he got another kind of prophecy, and it said, there's going to be flooding. You should reveal the terma to avoid the flooding in Lhasa and the central Tibet. Then he said, oh, this time really I'm going to do that. So he did, and he revealed the terma, and he did the practices, and specifically avoided the flooding which Lhasa was prone to because of its location, and totally dispelled that obstacle. That's because Guru Padmasambhava, the point is that he knew exactly what was going to happen in the future and how things were going to happen.
And the balance of the causes and conditions too.
Yeah.
Like it's not, because even too, there's so many stories where, like with Sasun Limpa or something, where one little thing's a little bit off, and not all the terma is actually even revealed. Or there's other instances too.
That happened with the dark red ambulance, didn't it?
To some degree.
Yeah.
I just think we should be careful with our time a little bit, with how many, it's such a big subject, and also maybe some people may not be as particularly knowledgeable of what we're referencing, so there might be a lot of...
Right.
But the take-home point, it seems like in Terma, is that it's specifically a teaching for a specific time based on, certain things have happened in those several hundred years. At this time, when the barbarians come invade Tibet, or whatever, you should reveal and practice this teaching, which is particularly good to dispel these obstacles at that time. It's just so deep and profound, it's like, and anyone who doesn't believe in the vastness of the nature being so deep and profound, if they come in contact with the Terma teachings, it's like, you must dispel that, to help. That's what everybody says who actually sees someone reveal the Terma, or you practice that teaching, and you see how it dispels those
just
things,
that blazing, like
the
wisdom
power
of
and the beauty.
Padmasambhava's bodhicitta, and then these practitioner of tertons. Just that, so powerful, so blazing, so perfectly medicine.
I have a quick question.
And then too, I'm sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
But just to put, and then too, like you kind of were referencing too, there's the Dharma, this pure, blazing, beautiful, just all these teachings and these skillful, these practices which really catalyze kind of that realization in one's own mind and heart. And then this display in a way too, like in the Terma tradition, how you think Padmasambhava, Yeshe Tsogyal and the students assembled, just that, through their meditation power, Yeshe Tsogyal recalls the entire teaching, this is probably days and days of teaching from Padmasambhava, right? Or who knows their state of realization, and she completely remembers flawlessly the whole teaching. She puts it in calligraphy on a scroll of paper, like the whole thing, and then through their wisdom and their meditative ability, their realization of how flexible all this apparent things is, seal it, without moving from their cushion, all over these different locations, including space and in the minds. And then, like you said, in the future, when these times would come where some of the tertons would reveal them secretly, but then sometimes they would know when to go and where to go, and they would actually say, I'm going to go reveal this this, and you read some of those descriptions, like in Blazing Splendor, or you know, where people who very recently they remember going and seeing, like, you know, the rock like open up and these really hot objects coming out, and or I mean that's just you know, I mean just like that, where even for there has to be, I guess there's connection with everyone and one's own devotion, but to think, you know, to just have that connection to actually see, for example, a rock open up and like all these objects come out that are like so hot they'll like burn, you know, burn cloth and things, you know, or something. That's not your ordinary thing for a lot of us. But not to mention what's actually in that treasure, like what, you know, it's not just the pomp and circumstance, but just that gets the attention, and like for those with devotion even increases it more. So I think for us to even think about that whole lineage of like how it happened and how the Terma came, and it's very, for our own like kind of hearts and minds kind of softening and opening and appreciating.
Yeah, it's so inspiring.
One of the things I remember appreciating too, I was reading through Brilliant Moon, and it was at one point Dzogchen was talking about how when he had revealed this one particular Terma, he was, you know, he had seen this mandala kind of displayed on a lake, and he was going into this particular temple, and then he sees this statue like reaches up the sleeve and pulls out, you know, this Terma, which is going, you know, it's like that statue wouldn't have been around. So then you're really starting to realize, you know, how kind of flexible everything. It's not like, you know, they went to a rock and, you know, I mean, many times, yes, they did, but, you know, other times it's like, well, that's not quite there yet, but we know what that's going to be in a certain place at this time, you know, and it's just kind of, it's just, okay, wow, you know. That was really, really spectacular.
Well, I have just had a quick question, just kind of, you know, you hear a lot about the Terma being such a big aspect within the Nyingma lineage, and I just wondered if anyone wanted to say something about just how the other schools of Tibetan Buddhism see the Terma and kind of how they relate to it and talk about it. I mean, I think it seems as though there's Terma teachings in all the schools, but it's such a huge part of the Nyingma school. Anyone have anything to say about that?
The only terton I can think of that was not Nyingma is the 5th Dalai Lama, who's renowned as being a terton. But I don't know.
I think I think Khenpo Saran Rinpoche recently said his Holiness Sakya Tristan, one of his famous reincarnations, was a great terton. Alway terton, or I forget his name exactly. And that one of his great termas was a red Tara, like a specific Terma practice of red Tara, which now is Holiness Sakya Tristan Rinpoche is like so renowned for holding.
But maybe then also just what the other schools, how they view the Terma teachings or Terma lineage.
I know they all view as like Guru Rinpoche as being a profound enlightened wisdom being, like a Buddha. And I mean, that's for sure. I mean, Khenpo Rinpoches have definitely said how they of all these lineage masters have had some direct communication and been inspired, if not directly personally blessed, by Guru Padmasambhava at some point in their lives, whether it's in a vision or a dream or direct perception. And so in terms of that, like the Terma being the direct activity of Guru Rinpoche, I think there's not any kind of a contradiction there at all, for sure, between the lineages. I mean, it's...
Are they practicing Terma? Do you know, or...?
Yeah, like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, quote unquote. Everyone practices that, and that's a really famous Terma, Karma Lingpa. So
7-chapter prayer, Guru Rinpoche's.
Many different Vajra practices too, and the Kama and Terma, all the schools.
And then Raga Ase, like his great Kagma, like Kagyu Nyingma master Terton.
I mean,
so there are tertons in the other schools, not just the Nyingma.
Yeah. The Kagyu too. I think the Kagyu and the Nyingma especially too are especially closely. Many Nyingma and Kagyu monasteries are both Nyingma and Kagyu, including Riwache where Ken Rinpoche went. But there was just a quick side note on your question, like there was definitely a time where there was a lot of false tertons, which they said many people proclaiming that they had, oh, this is a terma and everything. So then there was like Jamgon Kongtrul the Great, the first Kongtrul in the 1900s, and other teachers wrote, oh, how do you distinguish between an authentic terton and a not authentic terton, and terma and this and that. Like one example, Tsogyal Lingpa, one of the great tertons of the 19th century, so renowned, close friend and student and teacher of Jamgon Kongtrul and the first Kensei, who was one of the greatest tertons ever, you know. All different 7 types of transmission, anyway, he held. But he could hardly read, they said, Tsogyal Lingpa.
But he couldn't write, I don't think.
Yeah, he couldn't write. So they would come, but then like he would reveal the most like majestic, profound termas, sometimes in front of hundreds of people. And so the Kongtrul and Kensei were just like, this one, you know, he's just amazing how he can't write, but he's like total, you know, revealing these entire scope of the teachings. But anyway, generally I think they say like the practice is in the pudding. If that teaching leads you to have like more bodhicitta, more wisdom, more compassion, all those different things, it leads to that result. And that's a good sign that, you know, that it's authentic. You know.
Should we
Dedicate?
Thank you.
Thank you. Om Swasti Vijayantu Chosum Sasum Chitu Padmaju Nyinghe Sote Tuje Tujinji Tijin Balin Sherab Chubeku Nyujun Dendro Zenzan Dajin Sho Om Swasti Chuku Nanta Lunku Chenrezi Truku Bajun Yabyun Tujetu Vela Pazan Jacho Yansika Tendro Bende Dandu Nyurchasho Kadri Hawe Kowe Shinkamsu Bendan Dewa Malu Junweni Chenrezi Wan Tinsen Jamsohi Jabe Kaje Badu Tenjurji Om Swasti Sewang Rinzin Peme Jin Lauji Dunye Drupe Lapsam Nordema Sherum Kodo Samji Pajorte Samchen Naptan Juble Namjasho. By this merit may all obtain omniscience, may it defeat the enemy wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara may I free all beings, the precious bodhicitta, and those without it may it be generated, and those who have it may it never diminish, but always continue increasing.